Thank you, Anne. Now, just a little bit more about John. John Stevens is a passionate sales leader with proven success in transforming sales teams into high performers. As the founder of Elevate Sales Solutions, based in the Cleveland area, he is dedicated to bringing superior focus and delivering record-breaking results for his clients. Sales leadership best practices are combined with the power of Sales Acceleration's unrivaled platform of resources to fuel revenue growth. With over 30 years of sales leadership experience in various industries, he has successfully overcome the variety of sales issues that plague companies today. He helps solve company growth challenges by rolling up his sleeves and doing the work. And with that, John, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Brianna. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, I don't have a window by me, but hopefully the rain stops soon if it hasn't already. But I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Brianna, for inviting me to join everyone today. I am a proud member of the Manufacturing Works organization, and it's always great to be able to have an opportunity to give back and see if I can help some people along the way. But I'm excited to join all of you today to share some important information related to sales and trends within sales with businesses that are just like yours. So, Anne, if you could move to the next slide. Today, the plan for today, we want to discuss two topics over the next 30 to 40 minutes. And as was mentioned, please feel to stop me or put a question in the chat window if you have at any time. My preference is always to have more of a two-way conversation. And yes, we have a PowerPoint, we have some slides to share with you, but that's really a means to have a conversation, hopefully. So feel free to do that whenever you have a need. We want to review the assessments that we've compiled over the last few years from more than 3,000 businesses like yours. It narrows in on 4 distinct topics: strategy, methodology, analysis, and the sales organizations or the teams. Once we've gone through that information, we'll also want to look at a handful of sales trends that have emerged over the last couple of years. And at the end of that, we hope to have plenty of time for any question you may have. My objective today is pretty simple, but it's important to me. I want to be able to help you walk away with a couple of ideas, at least, that you can take with you, that you might want to implement now, that you might want to think about a little bit more carefully to see if they might apply to your business. But I'm here to hopefully help you walk away with a couple ideas that'll help you in your own businesses and specifically have more success surrounding your sales. Next slide, Ann. So first, who are we? Who am I? What is Sales Acceleration? So Sales Acceleration is the first and the largest outsourced or fractional VP of sales organization. There's a couple of hundred of people like myself spread out across the country, in the US that is, and also internationally. We provide revenue growth for well over 3,500 clients to date since we've been in business. And Sales Acceleration itself exists for one purpose. They exist to support folks like myself spread out across the country who work with clients that are in many cases just like you, that they have some significant sales issues and they can't seem to figure them out. And they support us through resources, tools, and help us to kind of accelerate our ability to help our clients and facilitate those engagements. Next slide, Ann. So who am I? Well, Brianna mentioned my name. My name is John Stevens. I have more than 30 years of successful sales leadership experience with some large publicly traded companies. I bring an elevated focus on sales and the strategy and the structure that it should look like. And I bring accountability to the process, which helps companies leverage their sales efforts to achieve the sales goals they have. I develop the strategy and the plans that are needed to help them be successful. But then just as important, I also implement those for you. Next slide, Ann. So collectively, what does all this mean? What do we do? As I said, we bring structure, we bring strategy, we bring processes to the sales effort. We work with primarily small and medium-sized businesses, anywhere from startups to up to around $100 million in size. So it's definitely a defined group of businesses, but it's essentially SMBs. Next slide, Ann. So I mentioned an assessment, and that's how we compiled all of this data. So who took this assessment? What will these people look like? We have each of our clients at the beginning of our work together, have them complete what we call a sales agility assessment. And the data that we collect is from one person from each of these companies. It's usually the leader of the company, whether it be the president, CEO, or owner. All of them are in North America. And as I said, we've got a little over 3,000 of these completed assessments. So it gives us a lot of really high quality data. Next slide, Ann. So at a high level, state of sales, which is a compilation of feedback from our clients at the beginning of our work together. What does that look like if you boil it all down to an overall rating? Most of our clients collectively have a poor rating in their overall assessment of their sales structure. That shouldn't be, when you think about it, that shouldn't be too surprising or alarming. It's before we begin work with our clients. And that's frankly the reason it's brought us together. There's enough frustration and pain, if you want to call it that, surrounding sales that they haven't been able to figure out. And if they're ready to take action and they want help and they're ready to change and work with someone, that's where we can help people. But this is quite normal at the beginning. So if you feel like that might be, you might be among those, you're not alone. And next slide. We're going to focus on 4 key areas from this assessment related to sales: the strategy, the methodology, the organization or the team, and the analysis. And we're going to pick out a 1 or 2 key areas of each one of these and expand on that a little bit. But when you think of strategy, you're thinking in terms of what is your positioning within the industry? What do your competitors look like? And how do you fit into that market? And then also very important, what is your unique value proposition you bring to the market? Something you do that differentiates you from everyone else. Methodology is really all about, hey, how do we go to market from a sales perspective? Do we have salespeople that cover a certain territory? Do we have verticals or industries that they attack? And then also just as important, what kind of processes, or think like roadmap, what is the roadmap for each of our salespeople and their particular roles? What does the roadmap for them look like that leads them to success? And then how do you pull all of this information together into a hub or a CRM that can help them harness all of that information and keep on top of their tasks and their commitments? And that's what a CRM does. Organization, think in terms of the sales team. So how is it staffed? What's the structure, and what should that structure for the sales team look like? There's various roles that create an overall sales team or sales department. How do you hire people? What do you look for? What kind of training or onboarding do you have? And these are all areas, as you can see, the large percentages there. These are the areas that they struggle in the most. And when I say they, I mean the companies that we have engaged with. Lastly, analysis. That boils down to, how do you establish goals and quotas? What are the key metrics that you have to help track and help those salespeople know if they're on the right path or not? And what kind of reporting tools do you have in place that help give that feedback? And then again, how do you tie all of those things into a compensation plan that helps drive them towards success for the company, not just for them. Next slide, Ann. So let's talk about sales strategy, going back to that. Here are a couple of areas in particular that companies struggle with. How well they've defined their own market. And that comes down to, are we in certain verticals, industries? Do we sell just domestically or internationally or both? What types of customers do we want? And what type of customers do most appreciate or benefit from the product or service that we have to offer? So very important to understand how you target your market versus a shotgun approach, which is difficult to be productive in. Next slide, Ann. Another area of sales strategy I mentioned a little while ago is competition and how well you understand your competition. This is an area that a lot of our clients struggle with. Well, most, in fact. Almost none of them have done a really thorough analysis of how they stack up with their competition and who their competitors are and what their strengths and limitations are. Some people might refer to this process as a SWOT analysis. We can certainly get into that later if you care to. Next slide, Ann. Next topic or next area is methodology. And the biggest area of opportunity for companies is their CRM utilization. So if you don't know what CRM stands for, as an acronym, stands for Customer Relationship Management. But it's not just a depository or a database of contact information. This is the hub where if it's easy to use and has the right customization set up for your particular company and your salespeople, it can be an area where if they're not in front of customers, they're spending most of their time in this application because it helps manage all of their notes, all of their tasks, all of their follow-ups, and also helps them manage their sales pipeline to understand where they are with a particular opportunity and what needs to happen next in order to continue them down that path. This is an area that many companies either don't have or they have, but they just haven't been able to harness it. And the result, and that's why you see the problem up there at the top, which 70% of companies rate that they're very poor in this, and they don't understand why sales are up or sales are down. And that's going to be a frightening thing if you think about it. If your sales are up and things are going well, the frightening part is you don't know why, and you don't know how to continue those activities and behaviors so that you can remain successful. Even more frightening, things aren't going well with sales, and you don't know why, and you don't know how to correct it. A CRM is a very effective, especially if it's easy to use, way of understanding those issues. Next slide. Sales organization or talent management. Almost half of the companies rate poorly in being able to hire the right sales candidates. I see this often in the clients that I work with. It's a difficulty of you don't know what you don't know because you don't know what to look for. And the solution in a lot of cases is instead of hiring people and you've got this carousel, which takes a lot of time and money and people away from what they want to be and should be doing, solution is to hire a pro, hire someone who's been doing it for all of their career, and they know what to look for with salespeople. Salespeople, especially if they're good ones. I mean, if they're good salespeople, meaning they know how to present themselves, they may also be able to pull the wool over your eyes too and fool you. So, and that's not always easy to assess. In addition to that, we as an organization also have our own recruiting agency that does nothing but hire sales talent, sales managers, and sales leadership. We do a lot of hiring, not because we get involved with our clients and turn things upside down and restructure everything. That's certainly not the case. It happens sometimes, but in a lot of cases, we're brought in because they need us to help vet their structure or help them continue to grow. In a lot of cases, that means we need to add on another person, or maybe this person needs to slide over to this role, and then we've got a hole to fill. So consequently, we do a lot of hiring when it comes for sales people to these organizations. Next slide. Here's a big one. Probably the biggest challenge in the area of analysis from a sales standpoint is having an appropriate compensation plan. Large majority of companies struggle here. It's critical this is done properly. If you have a good plan in place, then that becomes an extension of your leadership team. It drives the behaviors and the actions you want from your salespeople. If your compensation plan doesn't drive those behaviors that you want, maybe it's selling a particular new product or new service because you want it to get traction out of the marketplace, and you're not skewing those efforts and therefore compensation rewards, then you're probably not, chances are much greater that you're not going to get the results you're looking for. Next slide. So wrapping all of these into kind of a quick summary or an action plan. Here are some top areas of focus for companies in order to set up their sales team for success. Have a comp plan that's tied to the behaviors you want. Simple as that. Have the sales processes in place that match your buyer's journey. What is that path that your buyer or your customer is making or following to make that decision? Have your process follow that process. Have it mirror it. Need clear expectations for sales by setting goals. Good salespeople love goals. They're competitive. They want to achieve all of those things. They want to achieve them and do them better than everyone else. Put metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, in place based on not just trailing indicators, meaning what was sales last month? That's a trailing indicator, but also leading indicators that help identify the actions and the activities you want your salespeople, because you know the more they do these things, the greater the chances they are that they will be successful. Next slide. So that moves us to our second topic. Over the last couple of years, what have we seen emerge as trends in sales that are different historically than what we've been experiencing? Some of these aren't going to be too surprising to you. Thanks for moving the slide in. So over the last couple of years, not just due to COVID, but a lot of other things, most companies are facing issues related to supply chain, staffing. Those are the two biggies. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel in both of these areas, but I think we're a ways away from realizing a little bit more of a normalized supply chain. And for that matter, I'm starting to see some improvement from a hiring standpoint, at least as it relates to sales. For example, so far this year has been an easier market in finding the right candidates and then acquiring them and hiring them. In my opinion, it was a much more difficult climate last year than it is this year, but still not out of the woods. So these are some changes that have significantly impacted how your salespeople do their work every day. And it's also created or presented challenges for growing sales. Next slide. Trend number one, value-based selling. It's really important more than ever to understand how your product or service solves a problem for your customer or prospect. That's what a buyer wants to know of your product or service. How do you help make their lives better? How do you solve one of their problems? That's how they're thinking today. And going along with that, it's very important that you understand what your unique value proposition is. And you need to target customers or prospects where that unique value provides a solution for them. Next slide. Trend number two, virtual selling. No surprise here. Whether it's Teams or Zoom, right? internal meetings or meetings with customers and prospects, virtual selling or virtual meetings are here to stay. I think there will be some settling back over the next year or two based on the business or based on the type of buyer or customer you're working with, as to what the balance is between being able to sit down with a customer face to face across the table, or like we are today, virtually in a Zoom meeting or on the phone. But it's a different style. It takes a different set of skills. Just because you're good in front of a customer face to face doesn't mean you're good in this environment. So it's really important to craft a great virtual presentation. It's also really important that you're able to build good relationships and rapport virtually. And you need to develop your own effective style in managing those virtual meetings. Just like you have your own, if you're a salesperson, just like you have your own style that works for you in talking with a customer in person, you need to try to apply that and make it effective in a virtual setting. Next slide. Trend number 3, CRM, integration of CRM and marketing automation. So while CRMs have been around for a while, there's hundreds of them out there. And while those are really important tools to be used, integrating marketing automation with that are some trends over the last few years that are helping companies be more effective and efficient on the outer parts of their sales pipeline or funnel, or on the top part of their sales funnel. So all those activities where you got a much wider net and you're reaching out for prospects and new customers, marketing automation tools, creating email templates, ways of reaching out to 100 of your customers that fit a certain profile, and you want to send a message out to them, whether it's a promotion or you're just trying to reach out to them to communicate and keep nurturing that relationship. Those can be done so much more efficiently now. And all of these things are a way to help your salespeople be more productive and increase their effectiveness while working through their sales pipeline. Next slide. Trend number 4, leveraging artificial intelligence in the sales process. So this is a little bit parallel to what we were just talking about with marketing automation. Software is used for nurturing prospects, like using email campaigns, searching for prospects, based on activity online or in social media. Artificial intelligence is being used to increase productivity by taking over some of those simple tasks based on identifying lists of potential customers or prospects. And these might be businesses where you've got a really, really large list of potential customers. That's where you can start utilizing AI to move that sales process, again, on the top part of that funnel more quickly, to get to those areas where you get involved as a salesperson and can be in a position to close more opportunities. Next slide. So wrapping up the trends, value-based selling, adapt by being more focused and honing in on your unique value, and making sure that you prioritize those customers or prospects that will get the most out of that value you present. Trend number 2, virtual selling, how to adapt, be prepared, develop your own style, develop a comfort level and a confidence when you're leading or when you're participating in a virtual meeting. Trend number 3, integration of CRM and marketing automation. This is all about gathering data and also making it more effective or efficient for you and use, rather than getting lost in the weeds of all this data, using it to execute some simple activities that would otherwise take you hours to do, and you can do them in 10 minutes. A little bit tied to that is leveraging artificial intelligence on those outer parts of that sales process so they can be more efficient. Next slide. So starting to wrap up on a couple of things. So beginning to close with a quick plug again regarding what I do as an outsourced VP of sales. We, on average, grow sales for our clients in the first year 32% during that first year of engagement with them. We've dealt with almost 3,500 clients to date. We don't work with tons and tons of clients. For example, I work with anywhere from, depending on what that work is, with one of my clients, anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 or 6 clients at a time. So we don't work with a whole lot of clients at one point, but that's also because we get pretty involved with them. We stand right beside them and get the work done that we have developed. 80% of small businesses suffer from some level of sales leadership gap. And that's the type of gap that I'm fulfilling every day with my clients. Next slide. So next steps. If you have questions that you aren't already prepared to ask, or if you want to have a follow-up conversation, I'm absolutely available. No obligation. Happy to talk to any one of you if you're looking for just a little bit of guidance or a little bit of help, or if you really do need help and we want to discuss maybe getting involved together. Happy to have any of those conversations. Being a member of Manufacturing Works, it's a great opportunity to try to help people and realize the success they're looking for in their businesses. So you can see my phone number there on the screen, as well as my email address. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. Happy to talk. With that, I'll ask if there are any questions.
Thanks, John. That was a lot of information to digest. So glad that we are recording this session for sure. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or if you want to be brave and take yourself off mute and show us your face, we're happy to hear your question as well. In the meantime, I actually have a couple of questions, specifically around, or one question specifically around CRM. I know I don't want to share too many of our skeletons here, but I know at Manufacturing Works, we do struggle a little bit to have full staff ownership over using our CRM. And just wondering how you might recommend getting people to embrace using the CRM more.
That's a great question, Brianna. So often I think there's a perception problem for salespeople. I think instinctively they think in terms of, hey, they're asking me to utilize this tool, and really all they're trying to do is have ways of looking over my shoulder and making sure that I'm working and getting the things done that they think are important, which, a very small sliver of that is actually true. But really that's not the purpose behind that. And so therefore, a lot of times at the very beginning, it's the approach. This is what we have. This is what this tool represents. We, as an ownership of the business, or leadership team of the business, we think this will really help you guys. So it's a matter of positioning it in a way that helps them understand they will benefit. And it's not just about me taking more time away from what I want to be doing, which is creating sales. So you have to help them understand how they benefit. And if it's easy to use, which is critically important, if you can customize it in a way that it really applies to what they do and it creates time for them, then they're going to embrace it and they're going to love it. If they can see that it allows them to be more efficient and more effective, if it helps them to be more productive, it's a matter of, I go back to when, I'm going to show my age here, because it used to be that I started my career in covering a 4-state territory. I had a car, I was gone Monday through Thursday, did lots of driving. And what did I have? I had a banker's box in my back seat of my car. It was full of all those manila folders, and each customer was a manila folder. Well, think of taking that whole banker's box and all those notes, the contact information, the follow-ups and the tasks and all that stuff, and being able to load that electronically into a tool. And I would be taking that time that I was spending writing those and updating those files. And instead I would be just typing them in. So I'm not spending any more or less time. I might even be spending less time in keeping track of those things. But on top of that, it allows me to track certain metrics that in the big scheme of things are important to me. It also allows me to track what my pipeline looks like and what type of sales realistically that's projecting. So if you can show them how they benefit, that's the big thing.
So the tried and true method of with him, right? What's in it for me?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess I could have summed it up just with that.
And at
Those
least you
people
didn't
don't
mention a Rolodex when.
Yeah, the software tools that are available today, just as for so many other things that we do in our lives, but applies for sales too. There's so many great tools that, again, if you only get one chance to launch that sucker, and if you don't launch it right, and you don't make it simple and easy to understand and use, they're going to need training, they're going to need help. But if you only get one chance to get that going in the right direction, and then you're going to struggle if you don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, John, this is Dan Collins. I'm VP of Sales and Marketing for Wire Products Company here in Cleveland. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, we utilize manufacturers reps that are all independent businessmen and women for sales of our products. I don't have a single company employed salesperson. Are there any specific strategies that would be uniquely appropriate and different from approaching a sales team that I have less control over than if I had company employed individuals where I could say, John, I want you in St. Louis tomorrow on an 8 o'clock flight. With manufacturers reps, I'm one company in a portfolio of maybe 6 or 7 principals that they have. So I get, 10 or 15% of their time in an average month, let's say. Are there any strategies that you've seen work successfully that help to grab a little bit more of their attention, focus, and that might be different from working with company employees?
That's a good question. I've been part of 2 companies in my career. One of them, we went from a manufacturer rep-based business, and then over time we built a sales team across the whole country, and we converted it, which that transition isn't always easy. So I'm familiar with what you're talking about. And then most recently, last corporate job I had, we relied on having 3 or 4 or 5 sales managers or people, but then we deployed manufacturer rep groups with most of our businesses. So I have some good experience and understanding of what you're talking about. And the key is, how do you maximize the mind share of these manufacturer rep groups? Because to your point, they handle lots of different lines. They are professed to have our own relationships with the customers that you covet, that you want. And they can be the bridge if they're good at it. There's lots of bad ones out there. There's also some really, really good ones that are truly extensions of you, Dan. And the suggestion I can have is 2 things. One, you do have to work harder at the communication piece with those rep groups. Stay engaged with them regularly. I know it can be a convenient thought that, hey, the reason you go to market this way is because you don't have that bandwidth and people involved to go do this work for you. Or employees rather, you've got agencies that do, but they have other motivations. So having a regular way of communicating and staying in touch, hold them accountable, set expectations. This is what you expect from them. It's this, and this. And you make sure that you hold them accountable to those things. And if you don't, then you have a reason to exit, find a replacement, but hopefully they're a good extension of you and they can deliver on those things. The other piece that can help drive those key things you need from them are how you compensate them. Really good manufacturer reps are also really good salespeople. They have built great relationships with key customers of yours, and that's how they built their business. So they're motivated primarily by one thing: maximizing those commissions, because that's usually all they get paid on. So try to structure a strategy of compensating them that, again, extends what you want from them. If you want certain behaviors, you want certain things sold, or you want certain growth or profitability, or however you want to measure it, establish what you want from them. Try to tailor that compensation plan that makes that work for you. Don't just let them drive. Well, I work, depending on your industry, if it's service might be higher, if it's product might be lower as a percentage, but whether it's 1% or 5% or 10% commission, instead of just saying what they want and delivering that to them, maybe try to take that, slice it up a little bit so that you can get what you want. If you're paying them a 5% commission, maybe you get less on certain products and more on others, but you give them the opportunity, maybe even make higher than 5% if they over deliver on what you want. Hopefully that helps. I don't know if that stimulates more questions.
Thank you very much. That was helpful. I appreciate that, and shows me that you've got some good insight in that as well. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Manufacturer reps can be tricky.
Thank you.
John, I have a thought on that topic. This is Marcia of Manufacturing Works.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi, you and I have talked in the past. Is there a situation for one of our members listening online here where a manufacturer's rep would be advantageous over an in-house salesperson? Like, where do you get the analytic from, and how do you make that decision?
Boy, the quick question you have to answer is, do I have the financial wherewithal to support that? And you may not. But you see, that's a really big decision to make on the front end. What kind of funding or budget do I have to support my sales effort? And if it's just me, like in Dan's case, he was saying it was just him. The last thing for Dan was, at some point, might be useful, if you don't have the time, Dan, to have someone be focused. That's all they think about every day, is how to communicate and get the most out of those manufacturer reps. But it really comes down to what your strategy is, Marcia, because if you don't want to invest in having a team of 50 salespeople and sales managers that they report up to, where you have this whole hierarchy across the country, which is it's a large commitment. It's a large amount of dollars, but you get what you pay for in that respect usually. But if you don't want to build your strategy surrounding that, and you don't want to budget that much kind of infrastructure to the sales investment you have, well, then you've got to pare that down, because you're going to have less employees. And then you really do need to hunt down and find the right rep groups that can help you be successful. And that's really tricky. Having a good network of people you can talk to, instead of just interviewing these different rep agencies for a particular industry or a group of customers or geography. That's not always easy to do unless you've worked with them for years and years. Does that answer your question, Mercy, or does that just?
Yeah, no, it does. And I appreciate that. Thank you very much, John.
Welcome.
All right, I have another question over here. So you talked earlier about making sure you know your competition, and how several businesses, a majority of businesses, don't really understand what that competition looks like. Can you talk a little bit more about the process for how a company would understand who their competition is?
Sure. And it's an easy thing that often happens from what I've seen in the work that I do with my clients. It's because it's a smaller business. Therefore, people often wear multiple hats, right? They often do multiple things in the organization. But what that means is it's not like you have people that have excess time on their hands. hands. And you get involved in the day-to-day of your business. You've got these blinders on, and these are the things and the fires I got to put out each day. Sometimes you don't take those blinders off and look outside of that to understand, who am I competing against and what do they look like? That's easy to overlook those things. So, but what's critically important is that you can't understand your own positioning in the marketplace if you don't understand your competition. So one way, I think the best way of going through this process is I create a SWOT analysis. That's an acronym. It stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I always build it. You take a sheet of paper and you divide it into quarters. SWOT. And you go through a process and you think, all right, I'm going to create a SWOT for one of my competitor A. They're my biggest competitor in the marketplace for the products we sell. And I'm going to go through and think through, maybe I might even get online and do some research, but you want to list in bullet point fashion, what are all of their strengths? What are all of their weaknesses? What are all of their opportunities? And what are the threats to their ongoing success? You'll find a lot of times the weaknesses can be kind of tied to the opportunities and sometimes tied to the threats. But when you go through that kind of careful thinking process, you're going to come up with some things that you will find useful, because your next step, you want to create a SWOT for yourself. What's the SWOT for your own company? And maybe another competitor B and competitor C. And when you have those SWOTs together in front of you, it's going to start revealing things to you that position you within the marketplace. It's also going to position how you are successful in competing against competitor A and where you struggle. And it starts to reveal why. And then you can start trying to prioritize how you address those things. That help?
I love that. I am a big fan of SWOT analysis, and I never thought about doing it for a competitor. So I think that's a great nugget of information there. We've got a question in the chat here. How would you know what opportunities your competition has? So tied to the last question.
Wow, a lot of times that can be revealed if you've got a sales team that is really out there and engaged with not just the customers or prospects, but also your competitors. Some of the best salespeople I've been around, you've heard the expression, hold your friends close, but your enemies closer. And they get to know their competitors because they're peers. They work with the same customers. They go head to head every day. And a lot of times you can pick up on tidbits that help you piece together a larger picture. But some of that can also come from your customers. If you've got a really strong relationship or rapport with a buyer, with one of your most important customers, a lot of times you're going to understand if something's happening outside of what your normal scope is. So it's really more about intelligence and relationships. Because that's if you're not there looking and asking about it, that it's something you're blind to. I don't know if that helps answer your question. SWOT will help you do that too.
Yeah. Beth says thank you. So I assume that means you were able to answer her question. So I want to shift to compensation. I know you discussed this a little bit with Dan. And I know there are several different compensation models out there for sales. In your opinion, what's an ideal compensation model look like for salespeople?
Well, boil it all down to one thing. It needs to drive the behaviors and activities that you want most from your salespeople. So if you're the president of your company, what's most important? What are the most important results you want out of that salesperson or that sales team? Identify those things, build your comp plan around it. And sometimes that's difficult to put together because salespeople sometimes perform different roles. Maybe they're a business development person, which is all new business. Maybe they're more of an account manager. You've got this responsibility for 5 or 10 really important strategic customers. Or maybe you're a sales development rep that's really just focused on the front end of that sales funnel or sales pipeline. And then you turn things over to a business development person to close those sales. So they all have different roles, and you can't apply the same comp plan to all of those people. A business development person, especially if you want to attract a good one and retain them, they're going to be heavily weighted by new business and therefore large commission opportunities. Their compensation plan might be 50% salary or less, and 50% or more of their on-target earnings is based on closing sales and new customers. But if it's an account manager type of role, where you're not asking them to go out and prospect and find new business and talk to new customers, you're just asking them to ingrain themselves and become the expert, everything to do with their accounts. Well, that's different structure. A BDR comp plan won't work well for that. That salesperson is probably more in a say a 70% salary, and the other 30% might be based on certain annual goals and achievements. So you need to tailor what you want from those folks and also what you're asking them to do. Last thing I'll say, don't be afraid to change your comp plan. It's important you handle that carefully, because the idea shouldn't be that you're trying to change the comp plan to pull money out of their pocket. I mean, the intent should be, and the mindset with them should be, hey, we're going to adjust the comp plan, not here to try to take money out of your pocket. I want to help you try to make more money, but it needs to be in alignment with some of the changing goals our company has now. We need to do some different things, and we need you to embrace and be successful doing those. So changing the comp plan isn't a bad thing. You just have to be careful with it.
All right. One more question from me, and that is probably tied to comp a little bit, but what are some best practices? We hear from all of our manufacturers that, hiring across the board is a challenge right now, not just for manufacturing, for any industry, I think. And we probably all see it when we go to the grocery store or to a restaurant or anywhere that's not our home. And just wondering, what is a successful strategy for hiring effective salespeople?
That's a good question. And that's an area that I think a lot of smaller businesses struggle with, because I've said it earlier, and I actually make this statement a lot. You just don't know what you don't know. It's not that you're not a great business owner or a great product and you've got a great strategy in place. But usually, a lot of times, those folks, their strength just isn't in sales. Their strength is in the product they've developed and some of the things. So if they don't know what to look for, and then that leads them to usually making mistakes in who they're hiring. So it's important that you first, no matter whether you're good at this or not in hiring salespeople, you need to have a quality job description put in place. So create what that job is, what is the role, and what is the job description of what needs to be done to be successful. Take the job description, and then from that, build a profile. That profile means it applies what it is that person needs to do, the type of person that needs to be successful in it. Maybe it needs to be a certain type of team player or personality that's a good cultural fit as well. But the job description brings to life that profile, and that profile is key, because that's what you're going to use as your net to go attract candidates. And you're positioning what it is you're looking for, and you want to talk to those people that fit that profile. But once you've identified a great candidate and you make an offer and hire them, the next and really important piece of that is you've got a really good onboarding plan. You've got a great way to train them, not just on the company initially, but on, hey, here's what I'm here. Here's what you're here to do. Here's the rest of the training plan, whether it's product or service that we sell. And then you're going to talk about the sales processes and the other tools we've got in place. It's so often that you see someone and they get hired, at least not in the work that I do, because it tends to become a pretty significant part of the work I do if I'm responsible for hiring and then onboarding someone. But it's not just a day or two of training and here's your HR documents and here's the system and here's Outlook and good luck. And unfortunately, that does happen. People get busy and they as much as they want to, they can't get back to helping that person be set up for success. So the front end, meaning the hiring process, and then the back end, the onboarding and ongoing training for the first 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. That's the other half of the whole process, and it's really important to retain.
Now you're singing my song. That's I'm all about the onboarding and the learning and development. And there's very much a difference between orientation and onboarding, right? So
yeah. Yeah, you spend so much effort and money and time.
Yep.
Looking for people, and then going through the process of talking with them and interviewing them and then hiring them. You spend all this time and money. And if you don't finish the job, you're going to have turnover and you're going to be spending all of that time and money over and over and over again if you would just do it right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes easier said than done, but
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
it's a lot of what I do.
Mm-hmm. All right, I am not seeing any more questions in the chat, and I don't see anyone popping in to ask any final questions. So I am going to wrap us up here. Thank you, John, so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I said my pleasure. It was great to be here.
Sorry. I was talking over you, so I didn't hear. So so happy to have you with us. And thank you everyone who joined the call. And I hope you got some good information out of it. I know that I did. We encourage anyone who's attended today to share your thoughts on the topics you'd like to see covered in future calls, as well as any feedback that you might have on this specific topic and webinar. So please stay tuned to your email. We'll announce future webinars. We have a lot of webinars coming up in June, all really good topics. So hopefully you all are able to join us. And as I mentioned before, this session was recorded. It will be on our YouTube channel, so feel free to review it or share with someone else on your team who might benefit from it. And with that, I just want to thank you all. I hope you stay happy and healthy and enjoy what looks like sunshine right now. We'll see what it looks like later today, but enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you, everyone.